Hello, I'm Grant from Maker's Vlog, and today I'm going to be talking about routers. Now, if you'd seen a video 3 videos ago, I think, I mentioned routers and roughly what they do. This video I'm going to talk at the start about what you can do in a home environment to help protect it and make it more secure. And in the latter half I'm going to start going into more small business stuff. Still won't be going into too much in depth just because I'll be going through how to actually set up an enterprise router and things like that using a bit of software called pfSense, which is an open source sort of firewall software, but I'll talk more about it whenever I get to that video. But whenever I do that, I'll actually be going through configuring it for an environment. But for this is, like I said, to start home users and leading into sort of small business. So most of you will probably have a internet service provider router. So whenever you leased your internet line with whoever that may be in the UK, there are a few BT, Sky, Virgin Media, TalkTalk, possibly others. In America, I have no idea. I'm sure you've got plenty, and same in Europe. I'm not sure, but whenever you lease the line with them, more than likely, or at least here in the UK, you get given a router. They send you one out that's their own device. And security wise, they are okay. They're not fantastic. And I mean, going back, they didn't have to be. Cybersecurity wasn't a big thing. There wasn't hackers trying to steal everyone's data. It was usually companies that were being got after. Whereas now, everyone's home is a potential target. So I would say arguably they're no longer up to snuff, but they still have some protections in place. It's by no means an open door if you just have an ISP router. But if you're wanting to secure your home network a bit more, there are a few things you can do. Now I'm going to show this using this website here. I'll put a link to this in the description. But this website here has emulators of routers. So one that I'm going to be using is a TP-Link. And it basically means it's not actually a real router, it's just the software that's on it, so that I can go through and show you the configuration, but it doesn't actually exist, it's virtual. And this one in particular is an Archer C8. Now if you're wanting to buy a new router for the house, I mean TP-Link in particular, I know are, they're about 40 quid. They're not expensive, about 40 beer tokens up to 100 depending on what features you're wanting to get with it. What I would say, if you're buying a router, keep in mind it isn't a good idea to get one massive wireless router. If you think that your wireless is spotty around your house and you think getting a router with loads of antennas and a big beefy signal will help that's not necessarily the case. Usually you're better getting a couple of wireless access points and putting them about the house. So don't base your judgment on what to buy just on it has loads of antennas and the Wi-Fi looks really good. Because the rest of it might be crap, and usually the ones that boast huge Wi-Fi gains are really, really expensive, and it doesn't help you that much. So that's just something to bear in mind. So as I said, I'm going to show you this on this emulator, on this TP-Link. Your internet service provider's router may have some of these features, some of them may not, but these are just general features that are fairly common on most routers. So as you can see here, internet is X'd out because this doesn't exist. This is just a virtual appliance with a couple of dummy clients connected to it. But we're going to go into advanced. If we go into wireless and wireless settings, something you can do here, and it will not secure your Wi-Fi massively, but it can help. And it's this little button here, hide SSID. And what that means is whenever you search for wireless, or whenever someone's searching for wireless, say on their phone, it means it doesn't immediately pop up. It will not pop up in that list. You need to know the name of the wireless to be able to connect to it. Now, you can still search for this. This would not slow down an attacker for very long, but it'll stop someone trying to leech off your Wi-Fi if they see it, sitting there and they think they might be able to get into it. So it's a little extra step you can put in. It's helpful. Big one here is password. Most of the passwords for your Wi-Fi will be on the back of the router. Change it, and change it to something complicated. Some routers have default passwords, particularly for their admin account as well, and it's the first thing an attacker's going to try a default password. Some internet service providers routers are quite good in that the password on the back for the Wi-Fi is just a random collection of numbers and characters. And if that's the case, it's not the worst thing in the world to leave it at that, because it's randomly generated. And if you put a password in yourself, if you'd seen in my last video talking about passwords, they can be guessed if it's a word or something like that, if it's not a strong password. If you'd seen the last video on passwords though, you will have a password manager, and you can use that to create a password for the Wi-Fi. So moving on, guest networking or guest network. This is a good one, and some ISP routers do have this, but they don't have the same functionality. These settings here allow guests to see each other and allow guests to access my local network. Not all ISP routers have those options, but they're quite handy. If you think of IoT devices, so smart light bulbs, smart heating systems, wireless security cameras and things like that, they're notorious for being insecure, and a lot of them are cloud-based, meaning that you can access them from anywhere you want. If you've got the app on your phone, you can access them. And the drawback to that is it's a way into your network. It's a way into your home network that otherwise wouldn't be exposed if you didn't have these devices or they weren't cloud-based. Some of these IoT devices allow you to turn off the cloud-based functionality. A lot of them don't. A lot of them want you to be using their servers for whatever reasons. There's people who will argue whether that's malicious or not, but it is there. You can do things to stop them getting out to the internet, and that way you only access them locally, meaning if you have, say, a video camera that's there just to record, say, your cars or something like that, to keep an eye on your cars in your front drive, and you don't need to access it, you don't need to be looking at it when you're off on holiday or whatever else. There are rules you can put in place to stop it from going out, and it means that it's only saving to a memory card or something that's on it. It's up to yourself. Some people like being able to see it on their phone, but there are things you can do to help mitigate that. But let's say that you want to keep the cloud stuff. You like being able to access it outside of your house, which a lot of people do, and I can understand the appeal. This guest setting can be very helpful, because the first thing is allow guests to see each other. You're probably going to need that if you're doing this. And allow guests to access my local network, you want that turned off. And what you do is you'll enable the guest network, and then you give it a name. So we'll leave it at that, TP guest underscore 224. Sure, we'll hide the SSID again. Although whenever you're setting up some IoT devices, it's potentially best to leave this on until you get everything set up. It can make life a bit easier for you. And you're going to want to put security on and a password. Now, what this does, particularly with this button checked and that button unchecked, is that it creates a virtual network, another VLAN. Now, if you remember in the other videos, I was talking about VLANs, and it's a way of virtually splitting up your network to separate them. And in this case, what you're doing here is you're creating another wireless network that's separated from your own network, that you're putting all of your IoT devices on. Now, you might be wondering, what's the benefit of that? Well, the good thing about doing that is, say an attacker finds a vulnerable IoT device. Let's say your Philips smart light is out of date, you haven't updated it in a long time, and there's a vulnerability on it that can be exploited. An attacker finds a way in and gets access to the network through that light bulb. Well, he's only got access to your other IoT devices, hasn't he? Because this is unchecked, this allow guests to access my local network, this essentially segregates your internal network, your own network that has your mobile phone on it, your computers, your laptops, whatever. It keeps them separate, and it means if someone compromises an IoT device and manages to get into your network that way, they're stuck just with the IoT devices. So all they can do is turn your light on and off, or look at the video camera or whatever. Now, there is still drawbacks to this. I mean, you could potentially have an attacker looking through your security cameras, waiting to see when you're not home or something to that effect. There is still issues there, but with everything with security, it's layers, and this is an additional layer. It can stop them getting any further. It means all they can access is those IoT devices. If you go for a much fancier router and go for like a firewall appliance or something a bit more enterprise grade, you can do all sorts and restrict this way down. But in a home setting, you're not going to use that. So something like this can help quite a lot. So moving on, parental controls. This is a good one. A lot of ISP routers have this as well, and essentially it allows you to set rules in place for devices and what those devices can access on the internet and times that they can access the internet. So let's say you've got kids and you want it that, you know, at 9 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whenever they go to bed, that you want their phones to disconnect from the internet. You don't want them to be able to get onto the internet. You want them to go to sleep and not sit on Facebook or whatever. You can put a rule in place here, which you can see there is some already in here. So we've got Jim's PC, MAC address, that's just like the physical identifier of the device. Internet access time, so you can set what times you want this to either allow or deny. So in this case it's set from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock on a Monday, Tuesday, and what have you. And in this case it is allowing. And then on this one, same thing, it's the same computer. The times are the same. Again, this is a downside to this being an emulated device, is that the rules don't always make sense, but that's then a deny. So what you would have, or the way that I would potentially have this set up, is that, you know, let's say from here, this 6 o'clock onwards, or 7 o'clock, or 9 o'clock, or whenever, have it down and selected, and then have it set to a deny. And what that does is then stops them accessing. Now, what you can also do here is restriction policies, and you can have a blacklist or a whitelist. And what this means is this is a list of either websites that are denied. So on this the blacklist means that it's denied access, and then the whitelist is allowed. Now, before anyone goes into the comments, there's a lot of debate about the names of these, the blacklist and whitelist, and what they mean. I'm just calling them that because that's what they're called there. I know there's a lot of debate going on about that, but just that's for the meantime, that is what they are called. But effectively they are permit or deny lists. So in this case, what is whitelisted is google.com. So if, say, I put a rule under here that said, okay, I don't mind them going on the internet at lunchtime, but I don't want them going to Facebook. You can put a rule in here that around lunchtime, so from 11 to 1 or whatever, and have it blacklisted to Facebook, and just say, okay, whenever it's on these, I want it to be restricted based on this list. A lot of ISP routers have these parental controls in there, and some ISPs even have rules that are done at their end, so it's not even configured on your router. It's done from the ISP. I believe in the UK, Sky and Virgin Media do this by default, and I leave them on. I'm not going to tell you which ISP I am with, but the ISP I am with does do this filtering, and I've got that on, as well as the other rules that I have in my router, because again, as I was saying, security, it's layers. It's an extra layer of security in there, and stops someone potentially accessing a potentially dodgy site. So the parental controls is a good one, and even someone who isn't security savvy or even tech savvy, this is quite a good one to put in, even if just for kids, to control what, when, and how they're allowed to access the internet, and control what websites they're going to. Okay, so now into the actual security of it. You can see here Firewall, which is SPI Firewall, which means Stateful Packet Inspection. Now, if you remember my last video, I talked about the difference between a software firewall and an appliance, software firewall appliance. This is a software-based firewall, and it doesn't do much. I would have this turned on because it doesn't hurt to have it on, unless it's causing you network issues, which is uncommon for these because they do so little, in all honesty. But you would leave it on. DOS protection. DOS is a denial of service. It basically means someone takes your internet traffic and tries to bombard it with loads of random and nonsense requests, which essentially just clog up the line, and it means then that you can't get out to the internet. Again, you can turn it on if you want. It's something that's there, but it isn't often that you would get DOSed. Really, more businesses you might get DOSed, in which case then yeah, you can have this on, and all this does is it then checks, you know, the ICMP, UDP, and TCP. These are all common types of DOS attack, and it just checks for them, and if it notices it happening, it'll block them. And also you can see here it has a blocked DOS host list, and this is just IP addresses that it's noticed that's been doing DOS attacks, and it just blocks them. Handy that it does the host list here, where you can, you know, go in and remove them, because, you know, there can be false positives. Say you're doing a big upload or something like that, and all of a sudden you get blocked. It could be that this is false triggered, so you can go in and edit it there, which is nice. Okay, access control. The access control is a good one. What it allows you to do, again, it's based on a permit and deny list, a blacklist and a whitelist. And what it can do is it can either have a list of devices that you know you don't want on the network, or a list of devices that you know you do want. In reality, a whitelist is probably going to be the easiest option, because unless you just know that you have, I don't know, a cousin that comes around and leeches off your internet whenever you're not home, you know, and you can block their device. Apart from that, the deny list is not that great. You want a permit list. So basically you would connect all the devices that you know you want, at least in the TP link. This is the easiest method of doing this, is to connect all the devices that you want onto your network, and then you go into this, and whenever you hit you can select here which devices you want and add them into, this says blacklist here just because that was what was last selected, and it won't save because it's emulated. But whenever you click that, it will change this list to a whitelist, and you can add your devices to that whitelist. And what this means is, say someone gets access to your network and they try to connect, they will be denied. The router will look at this and go, no, you are not any of the predefined devices that I know about or care about. You're not allowed on. It can be a bit annoying. I've had this set up for a while, and I think every time I go to set up a new device, I always forget about this, and I'm scratching my head going, why the fuck is this not connecting to the internet? And it's because I haven't added it into this. It doesn't happen often, and it is a bit fiddly, but something to keep in mind, particularly with security, is that if it's in any way even slightly awkward for you, it is immeasurably more awkward for an attacker. So the more steps that you have to go through to get access to something or to get something on the network, it is, you know, multitude more steps for an attacker to try and get onto the network. So an access control list like this is very, very handy. Okay, and the last thing, and potentially most important for the home users, is in the settings. Under administration, old username, old password, new username, new password. Regardless of where you've gotten your router from, whether it's an ISP router or a bought one, change these, and do not have it set to admin. Do not have the username as admin. That is the first thing that attackers try, and change it from the default and make it secure. Again, password managers, make it a nice big long random one, because if an attacker gets access to this portal, you've lost your network. They'll have the run of everything. They can change all these security settings. They can give themselves more access. So definitely, you know, change these. I cannot count how many coffee shops I've been in that have had free Wi-Fi and their router has had default passwords, and you can get onto it. And regardless of how many times you tell them this, they don't change it. So, you know, change these if nothing else. This will stop the majority of attackers, because a lot of attackers, in most cases, especially for home, are opportunistic. They see an easy target and they try it. Simple things like this, like having a complex password, really stops that in their tracks. Another thing, if your router has it, remote management, turn it off. What this does is this allows you to remotely log into this portal and change settings. You don't want that on. You don't want people being able to get at this from outside your network. So I would turn that off as well, because again, that's another easy way in. So that is it for the home stuff, and I'm actually going to split this into 2 separate videos because it's getting quite long. So in the next one, I'm going to do something and show you a bit more of an enterprise grade router system. So yeah, if you enjoyed, like, comment, all that stuff. If there's something you want to see, if there's questions about any of these features that are either on here or on your own hub, by all means, ping me and let me know, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. So yeah, see you in the next one.